Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KONAT podcast. This is the first episode as recorded on December 28th, 2024, a Saturday. On this episode, we're going to be discussing the New Jersey drone sightings, the miserable state of the people of the city of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the mess that is transit ticketing in the tri-state region. For those unaware, starting on about November 18th of this year, some drones were spotted flying overhead some rural areas in New Jersey. Those drones were not initially identified, and the federal government has more or less kept us in the dark on it, including the fact that the President and the Department of Defense have effectively shrugged it off. And this includes informing New Jersey's law enforcement to effectively remain hands-off. Don't touch the felled drones. Don't go anywhere near them. Let the feds take over. And, that seems like a massive infringement upon both the state's, right to know. The state should be very much aware of what is happening within its borders. It's not as if the state is some sort of third party. It's not as if the state is a third party or some sort of foreign agent. The state of New Jersey is a very major concern for the U.S. And the FAA even has, to an extent, remained silent. And, meanwhile, keep in mind, people are not very intelligent generally when it comes to matters of this sort. There have been reports of people shining lasers at what they think are quote-unquote drones, but in fact they're, cargo flights or passenger aircraft that they've misidentified. I believe there was a case where someone near Newark Liberty did that. Although, a big red flag that is... I just do not believe it can be a foreign actor. The thing is, if it was a foreign actor, they would want to surveil areas which have large amounts of government infrastructure. These haven't really been spotted over military bases. These haven't really been spotted over cities such as Newark or Camden, which have a lot of federal and state infrastructure. And especially, I can vouch for this firsthand, as I live in the area. They have not been spotted over Trenton. If it was a foreign actor, they would have been spying on Trenton, and here's why. There is a lot of federal and state infrastructure in Trenton. There's a federal courthouse, there is a state prison, there are federal agencies of all sorts with offices in Trenton. And the thing is, I don't know why the federal government would want to do such a thing to us, other than the fact that they are data-hungry bastards who want to monitor and store all communications and movements in the U.S. Look up the PRISM program, or Bull Run, or those rooms in data centers at AT&T, which basically trap all communications and store them. And mind you, this comes amid the government panicking about the backdoors they've built being exploited, for lack of better terminology. For the unaware, if you use a telephone or a cell phone to make a communication over the network that is not just data, so you send an SMS or an MMS, or you call someone at a telephone number, rather than over voice over IP, such as Signal or Telegram or, God forbid, even WhatsApp or Facebook. The main thing is those communications, including their metadata, are stored, monitorable, and subpoenable. And they have built backdoors for law enforcement in quotes, to monitor the happenings of this. And they are typically able, this is called lawful access, which means they are basically able to tap and in real time monitor the communications which one person has made. The problem is, when you have backdoors, they typically will be exploited. It's why we cannot have shared, this shared key encryption nonsense that the NSA and FBI want. Why we can't build backdoors into cell phones for them. Because, the thing is, let's say that we build backdoors into, smartphones. Let's say the FBI mandates and forces the hand of every manufacturer, including the Chinese, to build backdoors into their firmware. yeah, that might help the border agent goons, but that will also help foreign adversaries. Let's say a U.S. government employee traveling abroad with their civilian cell phone. That cell phone is stolen in hostile countries such as Turkey or Russia or China. That backdoor will be used to exploit to gain access and possibly gain intelligence on the U.S. government, which I'm fine with, but I'm not fine with the privacy violation. So the thing is, back to the point, the U.S. government has been advising people finally to use end-to-end encryption, end-to-end encrypted messaging services for their communications. That is services such as Signal, the Matrix protocol, or even to a far lesser extent RCS, which is a drop-in replacement from Google and from Google, T-Mobile, AT&T, etc. for SMS, which the iPhone finally supports. iMessage is another one. That one's built into the iPhone. They're encouraging this now because they're so concerned about the Chinese gaining access to SMS contents. For one, they still lobby for backdooring this encryption and monitoring it. An example would be Senator Lindsey Graham's Earn It Act, which would in effect it would effectively break encryption. It would make it so that law enforcement has a 24/7 backdoor in practice. But back to the point, they're not advocating for using these services because supposedly the Chinese or other foreign actors, maybe Iran or Russia, allegedly have control of the lawful access backdoors for AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, even voice over IP services like Vonage and Google Voice probably. The thing is, I don't know. I feel more comfortable having the foreign actors having access to this on a real-time basis than the U.S. government having quote-unquote lawful access. The big thing is that in the post 9/11 world, we have become overly paranoid and overly concerned about security to the extent that we are freaking out and we have no notion of privacy anymore. And the majority of people gladly hand it over. When you're at the U.S. border, you have no right to privacy. If they send you for secondary inspection, they will give you two choices if you're a U.S. citizen: unlock your cell phone, and your laptop, etc., and let us copy the contents. Let us make a duplicate of it, basically, using an Israeli device called a Celebrite, or a Gray Key. Or we will detain the device for months. You will probably never get it back. We'll attempt to brute force it. And if you're not a U.S. citizen, let's say you're a German tourist, you do not have a say in it. They will, they'll detain your device and then send you back home, deport you, and probably never let you in again. Again, the point is, this all comes at a time when the federal government appears to be wanting to basically show its power. The drones. They're probably just a show of force in reality. And this comes as the quote-unquote back the blue crowd is about to gain a lot more power. But in reality, it is and has always been back the blue for me, not for thee, basically. They believe they will never be the victims of police misdoings. They do not want to curb their power. They're fine with them having machine guns and shit. Pardon my French. On a much lighter note, I recently made a trip to the city of Philadelphia, or as some people have called it, quote-unquote, city of brotherly love. And it is a beautiful city. It has really cleaned up. And yes, it did, like the rest of the Northeast, the Bronx, Trenton, Newark, Bayonne, Wilmington. It has rightfully earned its reputation. However, much like Camden across the river, it has cleaned up substantially. I feel safe there, and, I think most people probably would if they kept to themselves. The main thing is that every time I go there, I am always taken aback at how absolutely miserable the people are. I took a SEPTA train in from Trenton, and the fare inspectors on board seemed miserable. They were constantly leering over everyone, compared to NJ Transit, where they basically just leave you be. And I got off the train, left the city, left and walked around Center City. I walked down the road, down and went to a grocery store called Giant, which, for the record, the prices are obscene in Philadelphia. A 12-pack of a major soda brand like Coke or Pepsi or any brand owned by them, so Sprite, Mountain Dew, etc., runs about $11.50 there, and that's before the sugar tax. A box of crackers runs about $5 for a box of graham crackers. The whole time I was in that grocery store, the employees seemed miserable. When I was using the self-checkout, I'm laughing now that I talk about it. I'm sure you've used a self-checkout before, and they will act up. They will give you errors, scale errors, check for item scanned, misplaced item in bagging area, etc., etc. So I had one of those errors come up. So I had to wait a solid 60 to 120 seconds probably for the self-check attendant to come over. And when she came over, she let out an audible groan. Ugh, do I really have to help this person? Do I really need to do my job? And I get it. It's the poorest major city in the U.S., basically. It has some of the highest levels of deep poverty in the U.S. And there are reasons for that. The minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour. I saw a sign for a business, a small business, granted, but still a business, offering a measly $8.50 an hour starting wage, which is obscene. The cost of living in Philadelphia and the cost of doing business is not much different than in New York or Trenton or Newark or D.C. probably. In fact, I think rent might actually be higher than most of New Jersey, as well as housing prices. And and feeding into that whole, city is miserable thing, the people there are absolutely addicted to driving. I was waiting for a bus to go back around City Hall. And one of the things that took me aback was I saw someone get in their car and sit in it idling for about 60 seconds before they got on the bus. I also saw someone get in a car, drive a couple of blocks to use a mailbox, and then circle back. They're absolutely throwing money away on the gas and maintenance in that case. But that's beside the point. I after that I went to a sort of like a chain version of a bodega. It's called Wawa. There's other chains that subscribe to similar business models like Quick Check in New Jersey and New York, Sheets, I think it's called, in eastern Pennsylvania, West Virginia, etc. I stopped at one in Wheeling earlier this year. But regardless, I went into Wawa. I ordered my food. They have you order on a touchscreen kiosk, which I actually prefer. You just tap what you want. You tap. Every time you make a selection, you have to just click on what you want. It tells you precisely what comes on it and what you can take off. So, I ordered my food. I went and waited in line to pay. The cashier she seemed enraged. She seemed half distracted by her smartphone. The person in front of me couldn't pay, so he walked away. She seemed, yes, I understand that is quite annoying as a retail employee. I've worked retail plenty, and food service. So I went up to the counter and paid. The retail worker, or the cashier, I suppose, she quite literally threw my change at me. After that I got my food and left, walked around, ate the hoagie, and then I went to the train station again. I bought my fare on a machine, so that wasn't a problem, but feeding into the next topic, SEPTA has a reloadable ticket, sort of similar to the Metro card in New York, or Omni, as it's called now, as the new system is actually. Um, so SEPTA has this system called SEPTA Key. It costs $4.95 for the card. So I went and I tried to talk to a human to buy the card. The lady behind the counter, this was at 30th Street, mind you, so Center City, was not pleasant. She took the money and was basically huffing about it. Tossed the change she had to make out was 5 whole cents. I'm surprised she actually loaded the right value on the card. Which that leads me on to the next topic: the mess that is transit ticketing in the Northeast. So, the northeastern U.S., strictly talking New York, New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, is so there's 3 main agencies: NJ Transit throughout New Jersey, the MTA in New York, which handles regional rail, the subway, obviously, which New York is famous for, and SEPTA. And to a lesser extent, there's PATH, or the Port Authority, in Newark, which connects Newark, Secaucus, etc., with places such as, I believe they run to the World Trade Center and Grand Central, I think. Regardless, it is a mess, the ticketing system. NJ Transit is still largely cash only. Yes, they accept contactless debit and credit cards on the bus, and onboard train. But I think onboard trains, if you do not buy a ticket in advance, it is cash only, and I believe there's a surcharge for it. SEPTA, on the other hand, will take a card on board the train, contactless, that is. The thing is, NJ Transit is basically contactless. They do have a smartphone app, I believe, which you can purchase tickets on and passes. But if you want to have a monthly pass and you don't want to go to a station physically and buy it once a month, you need to have a smartphone. There is no reloadable card or ticketing system. And they do sell paper tickets and passes, which you can get at the issue is, a lot of the time you can only get them at major train stations. So Trenton, Newark, New Brunswick, etc. Not smaller stations like Princeton Junction or Hamilton. And it's divided up into a zone system, so you know what to buy. And the main thing is, unlike with SEPTA or the MTA, you simply cannot tell what you need to. You simply cannot buy that physical pass in any form without going to that rail station or going to that buying point. I don't think you can buy the tickets on the passes actually on a transit machine, a ticket vending machine. Though, if you go into Pennsylvania, they have this system called SEPTA Key, which, if you buy it, it's $4.95, and they actually do give you the money back on the card if you register it with an account online. SEPTA Key, in theory, is a great thing. It's half debit card, sort of like a prepaid debit card you get at Dollar General or Walmart or something. A reloadable thing which carries a lot of fees, and is not really good if you're going to use a prepaid debit card. Walk into a bank unless you've been blacklisted for having so many overdrafts. Even the worst credit union or national bank is going to be better than a prepaid debit card, and you still need a social security number for the prepaid reloadable part. But back to the SEPTA Key. So it's half transit pass, half prepaid MasterCard. The transit side of it is, in theory, amazing. You can buy the card and load cash on at a station. You can load money onto it with a credit or debit card online. You can also load money onto it at some bodegas and I think you can load money onto it at basically just bodegas and multi-service businesses. But the main thing is, unlike NJ Transit, you're able to You're able to buy passes on that same card, even over the telephone if you have enough money on it. So you can call 1-800 number from your cell phone and add a day pass if you have enough money on it. You can also check the balance via telephone, but not by text message. In New York, they're phasing in the Omni system, which is similar to SEPTA Key in that it is a reloadable contactless card. SEPTA Key is reloadable contactless, just like Omni. And adjacent to Omni is being replaced by Omni is the MetroCard system, which is somewhat iconic, I believe, which is a magstripe card. SEPTA still uses magstripe cards for one-time tickets, fast tickets, the kind you buy one time at the kiosk. NG Transit uses a weird QR code based system where you just scan it. But regardless, SEPTA SEPTA and New York finally have that in common. Omni, I think Omni does cost more for the month passes on the MTA. I also don't think Omni is accepted on Path. You still need to get a Metro card or a Path Metro card to use Path, but you can use the MTA Metro card no problems on Path. I actually think they might be interchangeable, but I'm not 100% sure because I actually haven't really had to touch the Port Authority's network. And MetroCard is actually definitely outgoing. I believe they've been working to phase it out for some time now. I know they said a few years ago Omni would be the next step, would be the first real step in that, which is actually, all things considered, technologically for the MTA, Omni has been more of a blessing than a curse. When they enabled Omni support, when they enabled Omni for the first time, it also enabled people to use contactless debit and credit cards, something they couldn't do before. If you wanted to use a contactless card, or a card of any sort, really, you need to go and buy a Metro card, and you can buy Omni with cash, credit, debit, etc. And I believe you can also load money onto it at places like pharmacies and bodegas and newsstands. Unlike Metro card, which requires you to find a TVM, a ticket vending machine. On the other hand, though, this does come at the massive expense of the system's reliability. MetroCard is a known to be reliable system. Dare I say iconic. You swipe the card, go through the turnstile, you're on the train. I think it also works on board buses. I don't think they accept bills on the buses there. And as I said, this is all a mess because NJ Transit still does not have a reloadable system, which is kind of a joke. SEPTA does have a reloadable system, and theoretically, if you call the number on it, provide a social security number, and to activate the MasterCard side of it, you can use it for NJ Transit and MTA, as well as Path. I'm actually not 100% sure if Path will accept contactless. They don't accept Omni. And the MTA's current two-card system is just overly convoluted for the vast majority of use cases. And even SEPTA Key is not 100% refined, because it's still a card that costs so much compared to a Metro card. I think a Metro card runs about the same cost as a subway ride, about somewhere in ballpark $2 to $2.50. Yeah, and I really can't find a good way to conclude this recording, so I think that will be all. Thank you for listening to the KONAT podcast. This was recorded on December 28th, 2024. Have a nice day.